One of the most profound and emotionally intense narratives in the Bible is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 22. It is commonly referred to as the binding of Isaac, from the Hebrew term akedah, meaning binding. The central question that has echoed through centuries of theological and philosophical debate is simple yet deeply unsettling. Why did God test Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his son Isaac? To understand the weight of this moment, we must consider the broader context. Abraham had been called by God years earlier to leave his homeland and journey to a land that God would show him. God promised that Abraham would become the father of a great nation. However, Abraham and his wife Sarah were elderly and childless for many years. Isaac was the child of promise, the miraculous son born when Sarah was far beyond normal childbearing age. Isaac represented not only Abraham's beloved child, but also the fulfillment of God's covenant. Genesis 22 begins with the direct statement, "After these things God tested Abraham." The Hebrew word used here, nisa, means to test or prove. It does not imply temptation toward evil, but rather a trial meant to reveal character or faithfulness. God calls Abraham and commands him, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will show you." The wording emphasizes emotional intensity. Your son, your only son, whom you love. The location, the land of Moriah, is significant. Later biblical tradition associates this region with Jerusalem, where the temple would eventually be built. While Genesis does not explicitly connect the events, the geographical association deepens the theological resonance in later interpretation. Abraham's response is immediate and silent. The text provides no recorded protest, argument, or hesitation. Early the next morning, he saddles his donkey, takes 2 servants and Isaac, and sets out on a 3-day journey. This period of travel is important. It suggests that Abraham had time to reflect. The silence of the text intensifies the emotional gravity. On the 3rd day, Abraham sees the place from a distance. He tells the servants, "Stay here. The boy and I will go over there and worship, and then we will come back to you." Some readers interpret this statement as an expression of faith that both would return. Others see it as an attempt to avoid explaining the situation. The text does not clarify Abraham's inner thoughts. Isaac carries the wood for the offering, while Abraham carries the fire and knife. Isaac then asks a haunting question. "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replies, "God himself will provide the lamb." Again, the text does not explain whether this is prophetic confidence or hopeful ambiguity. When they reach the designated place, Abraham builds the altar, arranges the wood, and binds Isaac. The text does not describe Isaac resisting. This has led many interpreters to suggest that Isaac, likely a young man rather than a small child, may have submitted willingly. Abraham raises the knife to sacrifice his son. At that moment, the angel of the Lord calls out from heaven, stopping him. "Do not lay a hand on the boy? Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looks up and sees a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. He sacrifices the ram instead of Isaac. He names the place, "The Lord will provide," Yahweh Yireh. The angel then reaffirms the covenant promises. Abraham's descendants will be numerous, and through them all nations will be blessed. Several theological themes emerge from this narrative. First, the text explicitly states that this was a test. There is no indication that God ever intended Isaac to die. The intervention occurs at the last possible moment, reinforcing that the purpose was to demonstrate Abraham's trust and obedience. Second, the story addresses the cultural context of the ancient Near East. Child sacrifice existed in some surrounding cultures. This narrative, however, ends with substitution rather than fulfillment of human sacrifice. The ram replaces Isaac, emphasizing that the God of Israel does not ultimately demand human sacrifice. Third, the test centers on trust in the covenant. Isaac was the promised heir. By asking for Isaac, God appears to challenge the very promise previously given. The tension lies in whether Abraham trusts the promise giver more than the promise itself. From a historical critical perspective, scholars debate the origins of the narrative. Some view it as an ancient tradition emphasizing obedience. Others see it as a theological statement against child sacrifice practices. Regardless of its compositional history, the canonical text presents it as a defining moment in Abraham's relationship with God. Why then did God test Abraham? According to the text, it was to reveal the depth of Abraham's faith and loyalty. It demonstrated that Abraham valued obedience to God above even his most precious possession. It also reinforced that divine provision would replace human sacrifice. My personal opinion is that this story is deeply challenging, but profoundly meaningful. It forces readers to confront uncomfortable questions about faith, trust, and moral boundaries. I do not see it as a celebration of blind obedience, but rather as a narrative about ultimate trust in the character of God. The turning point, the stopping of the sacrifice, is essential. It shows that while faith may be tested, it is not meant to destroy. For me, the story underscores that true faith is not about surrendering reason or morality, but about trusting that ultimate provision and purpose rest beyond immediate understanding.